We have breaking news as a major trade is about to go down for the Washington Wizards, as it was just reported a few hours ago that the Wizards are a legit suitor and trade target for Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks. And this isn't just smoke being blown whatsoever. This is a legit thing that can go down. I give it a 95% chance of happening from what I've known and heard around the league, being at Wizards games. I was just there for their little stretch of, I think they were 3-1 when I was there. I was there starting with the Memphis Grizzlies game at home on the 28th, all the way to the game against the Nets on January 2nd. Talked with some people there, heard some stuff. This deal looks like it's going to happen for the Wizards. I'm being completely honest about it, okay? Before we get into all this, though, quick little announcement, as us at Digest Media have a partnership with a pretty big guest. So let me go ahead and pass it to Bryson here to tell you about today's sponsor of the video. Before we get into all the news today, this video is brought to you by Kalshi. Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the United States. On their platform, you can trade yes or no on real-life events such as sports, elections, and really everything out there. And you don't got to worry about where you live, as if you're in California, Texas, or anywhere across the country. Kalshi is live in all 50 states. For sports fans, you can trade on game outcomes, playoff chances, or player performances, all on a regular market where you can cash out anytime, such as you could trade on what Tre Young's next team is going to be, like the Washington Wizards. They have a 43% chance on Kalshi right now. Pretty good odds, if you ask me. Another one, who the number one overall pick is going to be, AJ Devonta, 48% chance on Kalshi right now. It's a smarter way to use your sports or news knowledge, and you can close positions whenever you want. Download Kalshi with the link in the description, along with, and use our code DIGESTNBA, that is DIGESTNBA, to get $20 when you trade $100. Like I said, Digest NBA. Go ahead, use it today, and win some money on Kalshi. Thank you to Bryson for telling us about today's sponsor, Kalshi. With that out of the way, let's go ahead, get into talking about Tre Young a little bit. As, like I said, this looks like a very likely deal that's going to happen. It was reported by Mark Stein that the Wizards have emerged as a legitimate potential trade destination for Atlanta's Tre Young, the Stein line has learned, and a deal construction centered around CJ McCollum's expiring contract. More to come here. It's also been talked about how the, Atlanta Hawks would have to package along some draft capital to trade Tre Young to the Washington Wizards, as that's how low his value is right now amongst the league. Fans might think he's still a top 15 player. I'm not sure he's even a top 30 player anymore. So that's how low the value is, where it's almost where like CJ McCollum is viewed as a better player right now, where the Wizards have to get draft capital in return. Then a few moments later, after this was reported, Shams decided to drop a bomb on us that just in, Atlanta Hawks all-star Tre Young and his agents, Aaron Mintz, Drew Morrison, and Austin Brown, are working with the franchise on a trade, sources tell ESPN. Young's representatives and the Hawks have started collaborative talks over the last week on finding a resolution. So it doesn't necessarily mean, like he wants to be traded, but it might be in his best interest. He's talking about it might be best for me to go somewhere else. His time in Atlanta is coming to an end. And from what I've heard, it sounds very likely that a deal is happening. If you guys want to be reminded on who Tre Young is as a player, let's go ahead and take a look at it right here. As you can see from the stats, he's pretty solid. He's a solid player, and as you can see, 28 points per game, or 28 minutes per game. He's averaging 19 points, 9 assists per game, a steal per game, 2.5 turnovers per game. He's shooting 41% from the field, 30% from three. A little bit of a down year offensively, but we've seen him in the past. And this isn't one of those things where you absolutely keep him. Let's be honest, it's not one of those things. You could then trade him the next season to keep it moving down the line and getting more trade capital. That's what you can do with Tre Young. It's not one of these moves, let me make it clear, where he is on the team long term. It might be a one season thing for Tre Young and move him on because you're trying to get draft capital in return. I know some people have talked about, okay, maybe they're trading Corey Kispert in this deal as well. Maybe, they're packaging someone else. I don't see Kispert being traded unless it's one of those things where it's like, look, we can potentially get 2 firsts for him in return. We might have to do it then. Or getting that New Orleans swap, might have to do on that one as well, as it pretty much secures you a top 3 pick in the draft at that point. So it's really interesting to look at it. But these are some trade packages that I was thinking of and coming up with that seem likely going to happen. The first one, like I said, this is when Kispert does get traded. I don't think it's likely Kispert gets traded unless we see a deal like this. Tre Young, the 2026 New Orleans or Milwaukee swap rights in this upcoming draft, and 2030 first round pick from Atlanta for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. This is something that could happen. It could. And if Kispert does get traded, it's in a deal like this, not for some trade of just one first round pick or maybe a few seconds. He doesn't get traded in that scenario. This is the only way I see Kispert being as a part of a deal, and this could very well happen. You get that pick swap, which is really valuable, and you shed off CJ McCollum before his contract expires, okay? The next one is Tre Young and that pick swap, because like I said, I think the Hawks are just trying to desperately get rid of Tre Young, and they realize they have to attach draft capital, and I think the Wizards are fine just getting this first round pick, as they can then use Tre Young to get more picks down the line, and the Hawks would get CJ McCollum, Malachi Branham, and AJ Johnson. AJ Johnson being part of a deal would make sense considering he has been getting, much more time lately for the Washington Wizards out of the blue. Was not doing anything whatsoever, rarely played in garbage minutes as well. In garbage time, he might get a minute per game, but all of a sudden, he started becoming a rotational player and getting minutes in the first quarter of games, and it didn't really make a lot of sense. But now with this stuff coming out, it's the same thing the Milwaukee Bucks did before they traded AJ Johnson to the Washington Wizards. They're like, look, let's test him out a little bit. Let's increase his value if we can. And that might be the same thing the Wizards are doing with AJ Johnson, playing him, increasing his value, and then all of a sudden sending him off to Atlanta. The last trade, this is a really tricky one to actually work out, but as we know, Anthony Davis has been linked to the Atlanta Hawks. So maybe it's a 3-team trade. This is one I don't see really happening whatsoever because it's really complicated, hard to match stuff. It doesn't make sense for a ton of sides, but you could see it going down and happening. The Wizards would get Tre Young in that 2026 pick swap. The Hawks would get Anthony Davis, CJ McCollum, and Corey Kispert, whereas the Mavericks get Kristaps Porzingis on that expiring deal and Zachary Risasher. As we know, the Hawks don't really want him anymore, as they think he's kind of a bust, even though this is his second season, which I think is kind of crazy to consider him a bust this early. That kind of shows you what the Hawks front office is about. They can, they can sign players in free agency, as we've seen with Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Kristaps Porzingis on that one-year deal. They aren't great at drafting, though. That front office just isn't great at drafting, and we have seen it in the past. Zachary Risasher, not saying he's a bust, but definitely wasn't number one pick worthy the more we look at it. Maybe he can prove it down the line, but right now, not whatsoever. Alex Sarr looks much better. Stephen Castle looks better. Matas Buzelis looks better. H.A. Mitchell looks better. All these guys look better than Risasher, but maybe this trade happens. I don't think so. If any trade happens, I think it's going to be this one right here, or this one. It's going to be one of those two, all right? But like I said, I give this trade a 95% chance of happening. I truly do. From what I've heard, everything around it, it makes a lot of sense for it to happen. I know some of you Wizards fans might be thinking we don't want him long-term. I don't think it's a long-term move. I think it's just to get more draft capital, shut off an expiring contract before you don't get anything for him in CJ McCollum, and then you trade Tre Young again next season when he picks up this player option. You just keep doing this kind of stuff, trading him down the line and getting more picks. That's what you do. It's not necessarily a move that makes him a contender by any means next season. Like I said, it's a move to get draft capital now, move on from an expiring contract, and then potentially get more draft capital the next season. That's all I got for this video. Let me know what you guys personally think about trading for Tre Young. Do you think it's someone that you want long-term, or you agree with me where it's like, look, trade him, get that draft capital, move on from CJ McCollum before you can't get anything for him anymore and his contract just expires, and then you can trade Tre Young again. Let me know in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next one.